Welcome to Vermont Today. I'm Terry Jeroloman, and my guest today is Anthony Pollina, the next governor of Vermont. We're coming to you from Burlington, Vermont, on the shore of beautiful Lake Champlain. The governor proposed a stimulus package. Have you looked at it? Do you think it will stimulate the economy? If you were governor, what type of stimulus package would you propose?
You know, I think that the package that the governor put forward and is being implemented now is a lot of smoke and mirrors. I don't think it's going to do anything to put people to work or stimulate the economy. There's two major pieces that get talked about the most. One is an effort to encourage the building of affordable housing in certain areas of the state by eliminating Act 250 environmental review for housing developments that include 20% affordable housing. But that gets to the question as to what is affordable. And they're talking about $250,000. Now, even the analysts at the legislature said that this was not going to encourage housing, that breaking down environmental rules was not going to spur the building of affordable housing. The second thing that they proposed, or one of the other things that they've talked about the most, is the sales tax holiday. So come July, there'll be a weekend where you can put gas in your car and drive to the mall to spend money you don't have to save on the sales tax. Problem is, spending our way out of this is not going to work. And number two, again, the analysts have said that that's going to cost the state money. The state's going to collect less sales tax money. So actually, the state had to move money out of the petroleum cleanup fund to make up for the deficit that we're going to have because of the sales tax holiday. It doesn't really make sense. I propose that we close a loophole in our capital gains tax, which primarily benefits the wealthy, and we put that money towards three things. One is debt service on bonding, so we could raise $75 million to put Vermonters to work fixing our roads and bridges and beginning to invest in public transportation. Another $5 million a year to put Vermonters to work building truly affordable homes, and another $4 million a year put people to work retrofitting buildings to make them more energy efficient. A stimulus package right now with a weakened economy, with all the layoffs we've been experiencing, the single most important thing the state could do is help people be put into good jobs where they can make a good salary and they can then spend that money locally, take care of their families, go out for a pizza, pay their bills. That's what I would propose. That's where I would focus my energy, not on this kind of smoke and mirrors that they call a stimulus package, which is going to do nothing to put people to work. I talk about my friends who are iron workers or sheet metal workers or construction workers who are leaving Vermont to look for jobs. And I know folks who've been doing this for years. They have to work out of state. They come home on the weekends because they love Vermont. As they're leaving the state to look for construction jobs, they're driving over bridges that are crumbling right here in Vermont. They're going on roads that are full of potholes right here in Vermont. Instead of sending those people out of state to look for work, we should be putting Vermonters to work right here at home. We have a lot of work that we can do, and we could be creating a lot of good construction jobs for Vermonters. That's what a stimulus package is about, putting money in people's pockets and putting them to work.
What are some of the meetings, press, or events that you have been to in the last month that excited or moved you and the campaign forward?
Well, the most interesting thing and exciting thing that we did throughout the month of May, anyway, going back a little ways, was we traveled the state and we engaged people in these interactive conversations. Instead of just listening to me give a speech or talk about my priorities, I asked everybody in the room to talk about how they think Vermont could be a better place in 5 years, what they would like to see different, what they would like to see improved. And everybody in the room would participate in that conversation. We literally would write everything down and stick it on the wall, and then we broke people into small groups and asked them to prioritize what they thought should be done first. And so it was a very energizing kind of interactive conversation. And to me, that was the most exciting thing that anybody could do, which is hear what Vermonters have to say. I think part of the problem we have right now is Vermonters aren't really engaged in decision-making, in politics, and policy-making. It's all about the bickering that goes on in Montpelier. What I wanted to do, and what I continue to do, and what I will continue to do as governor, is make sure that Vermonters are involved in the conversations. I know what my priorities are, but I want to know what Vermonters' priorities are. So we held a series of meetings to do that, and everybody enjoyed them. Everybody in the room participated in every single one of the meetings. So it was a really good exercise for people. I want people to find their voice. I want to hear from them, because that's how we're going to change the attitude of state government, is by bringing in more voices of real people. And so those were very, they were exciting, but they were very useful, because they allowed me to hear a lot of what Vermonters had to say. And I think that's about the most important thing we can do to begin.
Bernie Sanders has a tradition of organizing town meetings. I believe very much like what you're describing.
Yeah. No, I think it's important, for a governor or any political leader to spend as much time talking with people as possible. And I don't mean talking at them. I mean talking to them, listening to them, hearing what they have to say. I sometimes get the feeling that a lot of so-called political leaders are afraid to have conversations with people. They're afraid to talk about health care. They're afraid to talk about, racism, frankly. They're afraid to talk about the loss of jobs. I mean, I'm not afraid to have those conversations. I don't have all the answers. I'm not saying I've always got it right, but I think Vermonters are really smart people, and there's a lot we can learn from each other. And I think when Vermonters come to the table, we can solve problems. But you need to have leaders who are willing to go out and have those conversations. And I really look forward to doing that, because I have a lot of respect for Vermonters and what they have to say.
I just moved to Vermont about 3 years ago, and from New York. And one of the things that I like most about Vermont is that I actually have an opportunity to express my viewpoint on political issues. And even though I was politically active in New York, it usually boiled down to working for a candidate and contributing money. But nobody ever asked me, what do I really think about an issue?
Right. Well, and I think that's what's special about Vermont, if you have the right leaders. I'm not so sure our current governor is asking Vermonters what their priorities are, because I think their priorities would be lower cost, real affordable housing. I think their priorities would be real universal health care for all Vermonters, regardless of whether they're working or not. So I'm not so sure our current governor is engaged in those conversations, but I think we're lucky that we do have some political leaders, as you mentioned, Bernie Sanders and a few others, that really do that. And I think that's what holds Vermonters together. And when we stop doing that, we start to lose touch with each other, and we start to lose touch with the real priorities of Vermont. And I'm afraid that's what we're doing with the current governor, which is why we need to change the attitude of state government and get back to talking with and working with people again.
On the national level, the right to life forces have continued to chip away at Roe v. Wade. Can you promise the people of Vermont that you will always support a woman's right to choose, and that as governor you will veto any effort to restrict their right to get an abortion?
Yep. Sure. I mean, that's again, that's one of those issues that is emotional for a lot of people, but it's something that I am committed to. I think a woman has the right to choose what goes on with her body, and I would do everything that I could to continue to protect that right. I don't honestly see that right as being under attack in Vermont on a day-to-day basis, but I think it's important to recognize that we need leaders who will stand up for that, and I would certainly do that.
Some people believe that marijuana can have important medical uses, as for example in the treatment of cancer, and some states have legalized it for some medical uses. What is your position on the legalization of marijuana in Vermont?
Well, for medicinal purposes, we have made steps forward in that regard, and I did support that and do support that. And, I'm certainly not a medical professional by any means, but I have had conversations with medical providers, actually, and some patients who are users of medicinal marijuana, and also with some law enforcement officials who at the time were open, about the benefit of using medical marijuana as long as it was done in a way that was, I guess, well regulated is the way they would put it. So we've taken some steps in that direction. There's now discussion about broadening the conditions that medical marijuana could be used to treat. And again, not being a medical provider, it certainly appears to be a good idea. It seems to help people, and it's something that I do support. In terms of decriminalizing marijuana itself, I am supportive of having that conversation. I think that I actually think there's growing support in Vermont as well overall for the decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana that someone may use or have for their personal use. Again, I'm not sure exactly what the amount would be or what the penalty should be, but I think that that's a conversation that Vermonters are ready to have. And I think that we have to talk about people being responsible. And I think we also have to be clear about how we treat, who we call a criminal and how we designate that and how we respond to certain criminal activities. And I think that the movement towards the decriminalization of some amount of marijuana, first of all, I think it's coming down the pike, and I think that we should start having that conversation around Vermont.
It's been very interesting talking to you again, and you can count on my vote.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.